Hi, in this video we are going to present to you our paper. It's titled, This Looks Like That, Does It? Shortcomings of Latent Space Prototype Interpretability in Deep Networks. Some background first. Prototype learning is a method that uses prototypes to make a classification decision. The general idea is to find patches in an image that look similar to available prototypes, such as the head of this bird here looks similar to this available prototype. And based on these similarities, in the end, draw a classification decision. Chen and others introduced at NeurIPS 2019 their ProtoPNet. It consists of three main blocks. The first one is a convolutional backbone, such as ResNet50, which extracts the features from an input image. These features are then fed through a prototype layer, where the similarities are calculated from learned class-specific prototypes in latent space. These similarities are then finally fed through a linear network where it yields our classification decision. After classification, the latent space prototypes can be projected back into the input space, hence the image space, and show us the patches according to this latent space representation, looking similar to patches of the training images. The decision-making mechanism of ProtoPNet can thus be seen as humanly interpretable. We can visualize this in this image here. For instance, the head of this red-headed woodpecker looks very similar to this existing prototype, which was taken from a training image, more precisely this one, and has a high similarity. The linear combination of these high similarities then yield a humanly interpretable decision, is what the authors claim. We need to understand interpretability a bit more, and for this we take the definition from Gilpin and others. They say, for a system to be interpretable, it must produce descriptions that are simple enough for a person to understand using a vocabulary that is meaningful to the user. It is also important that the reasonings are truthful why something is deemed interpretable. Now, for ProtoPNet interpretability, we can thus say that this equivalence has to hold. If two image patches look similar to a ProtoPNet, then they have to look similar also to a human, and vice versa. If this equivalence does not hold, we can say that ProtoPNet is not interpretable. In our paper, we want to show that this equivalence is not always upheld and breaks in some cases. We prove this, or we show this by proof of contradiction, and for this we set up two experiments. The first experiment is the head-on-stomach experiment, where we trained the ProtoPNet with the dataset used in the original paper of 200 bird species. We then took the test images that were correctly classified, and from the correctly classified test images, we took the top similarities, so the ones with the highest similarity scores. And with these, we constructed an adapted version of projected gradient descent that introduces local perturbation noise with the aim not of misclassifying the image, but fooling the prototype in the network. The results can be seen here. Now, if this is our test image, originally, ProtoPNet would find that at the beak, in this area, it would look very similar to this existing prototype coming from this training image, which also makes sense to us humans and has a high similarity. However, if we feed through an image which has perturbation noise in the green area, ProtoPNet suddenly finds that the area around the stomach here looks similar to this existing prototype. Now, we can see here as a human, we do definitely think this is not the case. Interestingly, the ProtoPNet is even more confident that the area around the stomach looks similar to this prototype than what it originally did here around the beak. Here are some further results using different backbones. We can see here one for ResNet18 and ResNet34. VGG19 was the ones that we showed before. We can always see that the similarity score increases despite that the patch, or the image patch where it was compared to the prototype, shifts in the image, yielding nonsensical results for us humans. So going from the legs to the back, and going from the head to the back again. The second experiment we did is the JPEG experiment. Some short background. JPEG is a lossy compression algorithm that introduces artifacts during compression. And what we did is we took 50% of all the classes and compressed them down to a 20% quality with JPEG compression. The other 50% of the classes were left untouched. We then trained ProtoPNet on this altered on this altered dataset. And then we used the test images of compressed classes, but we fed through the clean images, the ones that were not compressed. Now, if you did not understand what I tried to say here, it can be visualized in our result here. Now, the class of this duck here was trained while always being compressed. If we feed through a compressed test image, we can see that the ProtoPNet finds in this area around the white feathers here, high similarity with this existing prototype of the training image, with a 4.54 similarity score. Now, if we feed through the original image, which was not compressed and does not contain compression artifacts, we can see that it still finds the patch in the same area. Nevertheless, the similarity for ProtoPNet has decreased quite significantly from 4.54 to 1.38. Now, despite these two patches looking similar to us humans, they don't look similar anymore to the ProtoPNet. It's not just a scaling problem. Here, we plotted the top 75 prototypes of the compressed test image and the respective prototypes of the clean image. Now, the ones for the compressed image are sorted, and one can see that the ones for the clean image are not sorted anymore and are shuffled and mixed up. So we can see it's not just a scaling problem if the JPEG artifacts are not anymore in the inference image. Here are some other results that can be seen for ResNet 18 and for ResNet 34, and again for VGG 19, always with a very significant drop in the similarity score. 5.18 to 1.64, 5.44 to 0.64, and again as seen before. Now to some discussion. Recall the equivalence that we had in the beginning. If two image patches look similar to a ProtoPNet, two image patches look similar to a human. Now this left to right implication was disproved with the first experiment, where the ProtoPNet thinks that this patch here looks similar to this one here, while it doesn't for us human. Whereas the right to left implication was disproved by the second experiment, where we humans think these two patches look similar, however they don't anymore for ProtoPNet. We want to point out that we do not wish to discredit ProtoPNet. We think it's extremely useful. Nevertheless, we want to show that there are some limitations to its interpretability mechanism, and one might need to be careful, especially if taking data from different sources, where one of them might be JPEG compressed. We also tried some adversarial training and random JPEG augmentation during training, which showed that remedies the two phenomena of the experiments. Possible future work could, for example, be to check if other interpretable architectures are also vulnerable to this experiment. Are there other noises which potentially can break interpretability mechanisms? And finally, is there a way to improve robustness for the interpretability? With this, I want to thank you very much for your attention, and I wish you a wonderful day. Thank you very much for listening.